So let's talk about the Hawaii handshake. You know what I'm talking about, right? While the Hawaii handshake seems simple enough, I found that it's actually quite complex, with different varieties and a requirement for a certain high level of social awareness necessary to navigate which handshake to give in certain situations. So in this video, I want to break down the different local handshakes that we use in Hawaii and when I think it's most appropriate to use them. Because let's face it, your handshake is going to be different in downtown at the office versus at a family party with relatives. And let me know what kind of handshakes you've seen or given in Hawaii in the comments below. I also want to mention that I'm talking about the Hawaii handshake, but if you're interested in learning more about traditional native Hawaiian greetings like the honi, there are a lot of great online resources. So first, the traditional handshake. Although Hawaii is laid back, we still use the traditional handshake, but it's usually reserved for more formal and business-like settings. Also, I think traditional handshakes are almost exclusively used for first meets between men and women, unless you go in for the kiss cheek. But even then, it's kinda iffy, so I'd go for the traditional handshake. I found that traditional handshakes are safe and reliable, where both parties know what to do. Along with business settings, I typically reserve the traditional handshakes for strangers, especially those who don't look like they're from Hawaii. And I think this is where that high level of social awareness comes into play. For example, when I meet someone new, I have about 2 seconds to determine a few things before extending out my hand. If I'm meeting someone new in a formal setting, it's usually the traditional handshake. However, it gets interesting in a semi-formal or casual setting. So if I'm meeting someone new in a semi-casual setting like a restaurant, I may use the traditional handshake if they look like they're not from Hawaii. Speaking as a local, I think I do this unconsciously to avoid embarrassment for trying to give the local handshake if the person clearly doesn't look like they know what it is. So we shake hands traditionally and move on with our lives. Interestingly though, I'll also extend the traditional handshake in a semi-formal setting if the other person is generally older than me, like maybe age 50 and older. And I think it's because in my mind, handshakes with someone older should be respectful. I don't think there's anything wrong with giving a traditional handshake in Hawaii. And when I moved back to Hawaii 10 years ago, I almost exclusively gave traditional handshakes in all settings because I was uncomfortable with doing the local handshake because it's been a while. However, I eventually loosened up a little bit and I started giving people the local handshakes more and more. There's almost no sweeter feeling or sound when you connect a good local handshake with someone. So the local handshake, which is similar to the little head nod that guys typically give, is just one of those things that's infused in the local culture. I mean, it's there, yet it's something we may not think about. Now, I found that the local handshake comes in two primary styles: the casual and the bro hug. And I'm gonna try my best to explain each handshake, the most appropriate occasions that I use them, and clues that you might look out for in that split second you have to decide what handshake to give. This is your pretty standard slap handshake, usually learned at school among your friends. It was the first handshake that I learned way back when I was growing up. The casual handshake is quick and easy and used primarily with casual people you don't really know in a semi-formal or casual setting. Or I found that it's also used when there's like an object or kind of a long distance between two people. I mean, you know, you can't get in there for the bro hug, right? I mean, it's just too awkward. So for example, I might use this casual handshake if I'm going out bowling with some friends, and at the bowling alley, my friends bump into some people that they know, but I don't happen to know them. And so when they introduce us, I'm gonna give them the casual handshake since they are friends of my friends, but they're not my actual friends. Another situation when I might use the casual handshake is if I'm in a hurry or there are a lot of guys to greet. I mean, if I'm on my way out and I really gotta leave, I'm sorry, just line up the hands and just let me slap them so I can get out of there. Also, I think it's awkward to give a lot of people bro hugs. I don't know what the limit is, but my own personal count is probably about 6. More than 6 guys, I'm just giving you the slaps. 5 or under, I might give each of you a bro hug. Now, on whether to give the casual handshake, you really have to be good at reading the situation. What I tend to look for is the angle of the arm and the shape of the hand. If the person is coming straight at me, then I know that they're gonna give me the traditional handshake. But if they're coming in a little bit high and wide and their fingers are slightly bent, it's probably the casual handshake. With the casual handshake, you want to make good contact with the other person's palm. Then slide your palm back towards you and curl your fingers in a little. You know you're done with the handshake when you get that little tug and then release. Now I want to point out an important difference between the mainland handshake and the casual local handshake, because while they may seem familiar, there is a very big difference. We don't fist bump here in Hawaii. I'm sorry, but we don't. I first encountered this fist pump variant in Colorado, and it threw me off so much because I was so used to the Hawaii handshake. So when guys started giving me handshakes and leaving the fist out there, I would constantly leave guys hanging. But I mean, can you blame me? I never seen anyone use the fist bump after the handshake unless it was some kind of kid's secret handshake. So if you're from the mainland, you could probably get away with the casual handshake. You pretty much know all the mechanics, but please leave out the fist bump. Lastly, let's talk about the bro hug handshake. Sometimes it's attributed to the dap handshake that comes from the 1970s. It may look effortless by some, but trust me, there are a lot of moving parts, so a lot of things can go wrong. The bro hug handshake is typically reserved for very close friends and family, since you're basically getting in there and hugging the other person. But I've also found that it's often appropriate to use with guys who are very local, like very, very local. You know the kind of guys I'm talking about, right? Now there are some key signs that I look for when determining whether to give the bro hug or the casual handshake. And the biggest giveaways are the approach from the other person, the angle of extension of the arm, and the shape of the hand. So typically the person will step in, which is a sign that they're going to come in to get close. But the angle of the arm also, I found, blocks any attempt at the traditional or casual handshake. If you try to do it, it's just not going to work. And the shape of the hand looks like they want to like arm wrestle with you. So it's going to have a very sharp vertical angle, whereas the casual handshake will come in at a more horizontal plane. Now some guys are so physically big that they just stand still and they tend to pull you into them. So I tend to pay more attention to the angle of the arm and the shape of the hand rather than just the step forward. So with the bro hug, we tend to grasp the other arm in that arm wrestling position and just make sure that you get a good smack of the palm. That's always really nice. Once the grip is secure, both guys can just come in for a nice casual hug. Of course, the pat on the back is optional. So once the hug is complete, both guys will typically back off. And then there's this changing of a hand position from this arm wrestling position to the more casual. And then the handshake is kind of finished off with a casual handshake with fingers gripped, that little tug, and then the release. So to close, local handshakes we share in Hawaii may seem silly to some people, but there's something that I've come to appreciate in recent years. Because of the pandemic, I feel like it's been so long since I've shaken hands with anybody. Honestly, I forgot how good it feels. There have been several studies on the importance of touch, leading to the belief that physical contact is a basic human need that provides emotional, mental, and physical benefits. However, in Hawaii, we've been somewhat deprived of this physical touch, which plays an important part in our local culture. And of course, it was for good reason, to limit the physical contact between people, but it's part of our culture and it's something that we sorely miss. Because I believe that physical contact strengthens our bonds and just adds that special closeness between us. So, thanks for watching and aloha.